Thanks for tuning in to the Urban Scope podcast. Today I'll be talking about more hip hop news and hip hop. And a hip hop topic I was thinking about recently is the reign of Mike Jones. Now, it was a short reign that he had, but it was a very impactful and an influential one that he had. And how he led a masterclass on marketing. And I'll talk about a few of those in a while. Well, right now, actually, because back in 2004 and 2005 was his reign. So he had about a year or 2 year reign um, of just saying, who? Mike Jones. And everybody was saying this phrase and everybody was saying his number 281-330-8004. Everybody knew that phone number more than they probably knew their own mom's number at that time. So he did an incredible job of marketing himself and creating this image of just being marketable and just being, doing all these different things. And um, unfortunately, his reign was short because I think after the first album, he had some label issues and there were some financial issues going on. So he wasn't able to get that same backing, but he was still being able to be productive a little bit after that, which I'll get into a little bit. But I just really want to talk about his clever marketing and how he put Houston on the map. Now, there were artists before him. You had your UGKs and DJ Screw and all of these different artists. Even, to a degree, you had Lil Flip, but Mike Jones was able to put Houston on the map just from his phrase of who Mike Jones and just his ability to, I think, just his diction and his rapping. Because a lot of this stuff we didn't even know what chop and screw was, in Memphis back then. But then listen to Mike Jones, the Home Alone beat one that he had. Listen to he released his whole album, that first album that he put out. It was all chopped and screwed. One of the versions. So I downloaded the wrong version on accident the first time, and I actually pretty much liked it, that chopped and screwed sound. But they just gave us a little bit of that whole Texas culture, and I'll talk about that culture here in a little bit. Um, but the rap scene in Houston was gaining traction because Houston is synonymous with rap now. But this era was their golden era when they had Mike Jones, you had the Paul Wall, you had a Slim Thug, you had a Lil Flip, and you had other artists like that. Now you have artists like Travis Scott, who really not hip hop, but he has elements of hip hop that took it to another level. But he's pretty much the only person really from Houston on that scale doing it like that right now. But before then, they gave us a taste of their culture. Between the food that they had, the grills, the chopped and screwed music, just the music in general. So that they showed us this whole culture of Texas and the cars. So it was just the whole thing. They had this whole setup, and we didn't know about. Especially, I know in Tennessee, I didn't know about it. But listen to their music. We're able to see the car sitting sideways, like the song I'll talk about. You were able to see these different things that they were bringing out in their culture that they gave us a look into, which, was a great time in hip hop history and definitely in Texas history, especially when it comes to hip hop music. But this was their biggest moment in their history as far as hip hop goes because they had so many artists doing things, especially Lil Flip. He was tearing it up around this time, and he had that big song "Flip" after his name. I don't know what it was about Texas artists, but they said their names a lot, and they got a lot of recognition off of it. So it was a big time for artists being self-named and self-proclaimed, just to throw their names out there. But of course, I talked about Scarface and UGK already doing it before them, who set the foundation so they can being able to have that platform to take things to the next level. But those guys were more lyrical. These guys were more fan friendly, more commercialized. They were more successful on the bigger front because they didn't really rap about drugs all the time. They did rap about like syrup and things like that, but their main goal wasn't rapping about drugs and street life. It was more just about the cars they had, the women they had, the jewelry that they had, the grills that they had, and fashion and things like that. So they were able to be popularized, unlike the UGKs and Scarfaces before them, because it was street and it was about lyrics and things like that. So they were able to take it to the next level. But Mike Jones became the face of this movement of this Texas rap scene back then, at least for that 2 year period. Um, but that first album that he had, Who is Mike Jones, went platinum. And, he had major songs on that album that's still tipping, which is one of the greatest beats in hip hop history. I have it in my top 20 of history of hip hop beats. Then you have like Back Then. That was another song. Flossin'. All of these songs were great back then, and he couldn't really miss. But he was heavy on the mixtape scene before this first album, so I think he was already seasoned, and he already had a lot of experience and spent a lot of time in the game. He had did those 10,000 hours people talk about, so I believe that had some effect on him not being able to release a second project. Well, he released a second project, but he didn't release anything after that. But he still had hits like Cuddy Buddy and Mr. Jones, which is Mr. Jones. Um, Lil Wayne did a remix on, or he freestyled over that beat on a Drought mixtape, which I didn't even know hear the song until Lil Wayne did a freestyle over it, and then I was able to hear Mike Jones's version. But nevertheless, he was still able to put hits together, but he hasn't put out anything in a while. But I just want to give Mike Jones his credit for what the time that he did put in and his impact on culture and marketing and hip hop and just making a master class in hip hop and for marketing and being able to sell yourself and as an artist. So as always, until next time, see you next time.